Thanks, Cian Corley. Look, whatever about the finer details and implications of the matters concerning the Taoiseach yesterday, I think one implication is definitely there's lots of groups of workers out there who are just scratching their heads and wishing that they had such matey back channels with the Taoiseach or the Taoiseach of the day. And one of those groups of workers who I think you're suggesting it's in your DNA to communicate with is the Debenhams workers, who are now 7 months on the picket line fighting for a just redundancy as we face into the winter months. And certainly they haven't enjoyed the level of access and communication that they would like. And just to say that Deputy Barry has sent an invite to all Oireachtas members for an online briefing at 2 o'clock today, where the shop stewards will be briefing Oireachtas members. They're hoping, Taoiseach, you can make it, or representatives from your office and from the Taoiseach to actually hear about their plight. But one very important development that has happened is that KPMG, the liquidators, have now, in an action that I see as essentially bullying and trying to demoralise these heroic, brave, decent, hard-working, mostly women workers, threatening to walk away from the liquidation process, offering them an even more insulting €500,000 when an offer of $1 million, which was an insulting offer, was previously offered, and suggesting that somehow if the workers don't take this, there'll be nothing left for creditors. The state, suggesting even the state could lose out, the taxpayer, the public, which should start to maybe make you sit up and act in a way that you failed to do to date to intervene for these workers, is effectively threatening the state as a creditor. And all this based on spurious claims, which are being discussed, by the way, at the Trade and Enterprise Committee, the failure of government to implement Duffy Cahill, and the way companies like Debenhams hide assets which should be used in this case to actually pay a decent redundancy for workers. And that's exactly what's gone on. That the online business and other assets of Debenhams have been hidden, even though Debenhams stood up in court in April and said that an online business worth €30 million at least was an asset of the Irish company, now claiming it's not and it's an asset of the British company. All this contrived to deny these workers a just redundancy, but now being contrived possibly to rob revenue and the state of money. So will this finally prompt you, Taoiseach, to engage with the shop stewards of Debenhams, to force the liquidator to sit down with those shop stewards and get a just settlement where the actual real assets of that company are used to give them the just redundancy and save them having to stay on the picket line for the coming winter months?
Taoiseach.
Yeah, first of all, I said on numerous times in this House that the staff of Debenhams have been treated very, very unfairly and appallingly in this very protracted dispute by the company involved. You have been fairness to you. You raised this issue consistently in the House. You were anxious that talks would develop. KPMG were approached to enter talks on behalf of Debenhams to try and resolve the outstanding claims. Those talks were being facilitated by the WRC, and those talks, unfortunately, broke down on Monday. I will be in touch with other colleagues in government to see where we take this now in terms of the situation that has emerged. And I'm not satisfied with that. I acknowledge the stance that the workers have taken to protect themselves. Obviously, government has constraints in terms of legal frameworks on how liquidations are managed in the courts, and we have to respect the courts and all of that. I was hoping that these exploratory talks under the aegis of the WRC might lead to a pathway to get this issue once and for all resolved. That particular channel has not borne fruit. And in my view is that we should try and see can we resurrect that. And I will be discussing this with my colleagues this week to see can we inject anything new into this to try and get this issue resolved, in particular for the workers. I am aware that the Ministers of State are meeting with the social partners today to discuss the Duffy-Cahill report and also reforms in terms of the redundancy issues and how best to progress those. So we're going to do everything we possibly can within the constraints that are there to see if we can get this resolved for the workers.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Boyd Barrett,
first of all, Taoiseach, you have an invite to meet the shop stewards today to hear directly from them. They're also holding an online mass meeting on Thursday. You're also invited to that. They would be very happy for you to attend to hear from them. But you see, and this is very, very relevant, the government failed, successive governments failed to legislate for Duffy-Cahill, and now the Debenhams workers find themselves in a situation where a company again is hiding assets. But what they are just furious about is that you show no interest, Revenue shows no interest, the liquidator shows no interest in the fact that the directors of Debenhams Ireland stated explicitly that the online business worth €30 million in 2018 and more almost certainly in 2019 has not been pursued. And then you have Debenhams saying we have nothing. Even though the balance sheet that they put forward in court when the pre-liquidation was happening showed a balance at the end of 2019 of €30 million. 3 times more than would be necessary to pay the workers their just redundancy. And you show no interest, and the liquidator showed no interest in pursuing these assets. And allow a company that swore in court it had these assets, but then a few weeks later magicked those assets over to Britain, pretending as if they didn't exist, and you don't pursue them. So they are asking you, Taoiseach, to go after those assets in order to pay the just redundancy and indeed to pay the revenue and the taxpayer the money that Debenhams owe them.
Taoiseach.
If only it was simple as you articulate. It's not, of course, and you know that too. And that is the unfortunate reality. And Duffy-Cahill in itself wouldn't have resolved this issue, the implementation aspects of the Duffy-Cahill report. Yes, the government has undertaken and is committed to reforming company law in terms of, in particular, improving rights of workers where collective agreements have been formulated and signed off by both employers and unions, and to give greater and stronger protection to such collective agreements in the event of liquidations than they currently have. And in my view, that should happen, and that is something the government is committed to making happen. That in itself, retrospectively applying that, isn't going to resolve the situation here. And as I said to you, I have maintained an interest in this issue all along. I haven't led people up a hill sort of with a view that this can all be resolved very easily, because I know my gut instincts that it couldn't be resolved very easily, and particularly since liquidations are within the High Court and within the court's parameters and procedures, and governments can't just walk in and make declaratory sort of interventions of the kind that you're suggesting.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Time is up.
That said, I will still try and exhaust every opportunity to try and get some meaningful response for the workers concerned. And I regret the fact that the WRC channel has not borne fruit, and that those talks broke down early this week.